Hannah, we have you on this week
Yeah.
to talk about something that you've started recently, maybe something you've previously done for a while and then swore off doing, and then are kind of back starting to do it again. So can you tell us a bit about that? What have you recently been starting?
Your intro is just very aggressive. Is there some are you holding on to something that we need to talk about? No, okay. I recently wrote, produced and performed in a play called Pain Drunk at the Butterfly Club's One Act Play Festival.
I know my pain is such an imposition.
Yeah, so if you've started getting back into producing and writing shows.
Yeah, I mean, after my last, GTC's last show, which was Heather's, I was very tired. And I also got engaged. So the intention was to plan my wedding and take a break from theatre, which don't ask me how the wedding planning is going because I will not answer that question.
Because you've been doing a show.
I've been doing a show.
Decided to go and get
I know, right? But yeah, my constant joke to say to people, slightly serious, is, oh no, I've retired. And I have been saying that for about 2 years now. Yeah. I didn't do anything in... Wait, when was Heather's? Heather's was 2023, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I didn't do anything in 2024, which was lovely. And then at work, while I was doing my work, let's say that I was doing my work, I decided to write a play. I don't know how it came about. I think I was talking to a friend of mine who also is an actor, and we were talking about being able to really go there with someone and get into that space and be really vulnerable and have a partner on stage that you can reach that level with. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to write that. That friend and I no longer talk. So I've very often been maybe I should message and be like, hey, I wrote you a play. Do you want it? No.
Is it a nice play that you wrote, or is it a play full of fear and venom and vulnerability that you wrote for this friend?
Well, it's actually, the funny thing was, the inspiration for the relationship in the play has nothing to do with this friend. It was just hey, this friend's a really good actor. I think we could have great chemistry on stage. I'll write us a play to do. So I did that and I finished it at work. And I wasn't really going to do anything with it. I think I'd asked a few friends to come over and read it with me. I think Jett was one of those friends. I was like, yeah, come read this play with me.
I've read it. I actually had it. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to see it in person.
Because you're a bad friend.
Betrayal.
Because I'm a bad friend. Yeah. That's the main reason. I had tickets to fly back just to see it, and I thought, nah. I'll send Reuben instead.
Yeah, so I went because I'm a good friend.
Reuben's seen
Reuben's
it.
A good friend.
Of Jett's, not of Hannah's.
But I did read it. I read the script actually.
Hannah, how similar
just the other day
is what Jett read to what I saw?
Oh,
so that
different.
We can calibrate. Okay.
So different. So
okay.
What I wrote was a lot longer. It was a lot more linear as well. Oh. And then when it started going into development, the director had a suggestion to start it from a point in the middle of the play, which I was like, actually, I fuck with that. Let's do it. And obviously the One Act Play Festival at the Butterfly Club has a strict 1 hour format. And I do faff a bit in my dialogue. So I really had to okay, don't care about your feelings here, don't care about your parents here. Let's just cut all that crap out. It is very different. But the vibe is still there. It's the same thing, and I would love to do it as the full thing. But yeah, it has definitely been pared down to fit the format. Yeah.
Would either of you like to explain what the show is for the listeners? Hannah, if you want to take the reins and sort of be like, great, this is what I see it as, or if Reuben, just your interpretation.
She's gonna make me do it.
I want to hear Reuben's interpretation. I'm such a stuck-up artist. No, tell me.
Yeah.
Tell me your observations.
Okay. So Pain Drunk is a one-act play that goes for about an hour. We saw it on Jett, we've actually been to this room, so you would know it, but it's a little theatre. I don't know if that particular room has a name, the Butterfly Club.
It's just the upstairs room, I'm pretty sure.
The upstairs room. Yeah. And so there was room for a stage and no wings, just a curtain at the back, one couch, one desk, a little bit of room to move. And the play, as I understand it, is about two people who are in a relationship whose names are
Luca and Colette.
Yes. And it chronicles their relationship over time. It's also, like Hannah says, it's a little bit non-linear, and there's lots of fourth wall breaks. So Luca and Colette will both turn to us and give the inner monologue or the feeling that they're having, and then you see that sometimes they're honest about that, but more often than not they will cover that or soften that or hide that from their partner in the play, in the scene. And then I don't know how we feel about spoilers.
Oh, give them.
Yeah,
whatever.
I mean, and I enjoyed the ending a lot because they break up at the end, but it's kind of this open question, or I experienced it as this open question as to like, well, was that a good thing or a bad thing? Because they're sad, and I felt sad as an audience member, but this thing between them probably wasn't sustainable or healthy in the long term. So when do you leave, and how? I guess another theme would be like how your past and your past relationships color the experience of your present one. And truth and dishonesty is in there too.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it.
Yeah, that was my experience of the play.
How true is that to your sort of vision?
Completely wrong, Reuben. What were you watching?
True art.
I wrote a play about 7 horses playing golf together. What did you say?
No, I'd say that's a pretty good observation. I guess the thing I wanted to get, the director would very often ask me, what does this thing mean? What does that thing mean? And I would literally be like, look, I'm going to be real with you, mate. Haven't given it that much thought. I just wrote it.
Was the director asking you as screenwriter or actor?
Sometimes as the writer and sometimes as the actor. Yeah. When they were asking me as the actor, I had such trouble with it because I was like, I was just going to go on the stage and perform it, but now you're asking me what I'm thinking. I simply am not thinking. I'm actually thinking that my foot's a little bit itchy now. I had not put a lot of thought into this. But yeah, a lot of it, I guess I wanted it to be, so the way that I would frame it to when we had auditions for the part of Luca, and I framed it to I think like 5 or 6 people we had come audition. I said, this to me is if we set up a camera in like the living room of this couple's house and we're just watching like snippets from their life. So I wanted it to be, sometimes it's just a little tiny moment where he's sitting on the couch, she's sitting at her computer, they're having a totally normal conversation. Then sometimes it's an explosive fight. Sometimes I didn't want it to be everything has to have meaning, every scene's in there for an intention. It's literally just like, no, you're just seeing the passage of time in this people's world and how they react to each other, because human beings are so different in their private space to how they are outside. So I wanted to see like, how are these two people when they're in private and when the world isn't watching and it's just them. And I hope I achieved that. I don't know, I was in it, so I had no idea. When I'm on stage acting, it's just like la la la.
When you're in it, you can't have any objectivity about it at all. Yeah. Yeah.
No thoughts, only sadness.
Do you ever have, for any of the productions that you've been in, that you've also directed or produced or written, do you ever have a urge to like record and then look at it later to be like, okay, how did that come across? Like, do you have a recording of Pain Drunk that you're gonna look at and be like, oh yeah, no, this is exactly what I wanted? Or
we do. We actually, my fiance came and recorded it on. You guys know. I don't know why I said my fiance. For the listeners, my fiance. I'm getting married. Did you know?
How's the planning going?
We should probably invite people to it. Hey, Jakob came and recorded it on the Thursday night. So I've been avoiding it so far because I'm still, I honestly feel like I've gone through a breakup.
Yeah.
Because I spent 4 months building a relationship and now it's over. Yeah. I'm like, have I actually broken up with someone? Because that's what it feels like. I've broken up with the character, but I'm also like, I'm not seeing these people twice a week anymore. It's very, and because I was explaining it to Jakob the other day, in a normal show that I've been in, there's like an ensemble cast. You've got 20 to 30 people. So there's a group chat that you keep alive. You meet up with each other. There's lots of things to do. When it's just the two of you, it's like, well, there's only so much we can debrief about this show. And then what does it just become a friendship? Like, how do you keep that alive when it's just the two of you? So it's been a very interesting transition.
Because
I never thought about how it differ in that way. Yeah.
We're only a week and a half since you closed? A week?
Yeah. It feels like it's been 3 years since we closed. Yeah. But it also feels like it closed yesterday.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How was the general like reception to the show in the way of, obviously this is a pretty vulnerable piece. I'm not necessarily saying like personal, but it is intimate, like this intimate relationship, and you kind of write, I don't know, when writing things, from what I've heard from people who've written things, you write what you like see around you in this world to let people in. I'm not saying that this is like any relationships that you've specifically had.
You would be correct if you said that. 100%.
Okay. Well, seeing as this is based on relationships that you've specifically had, how did you feel letting the audience into that space, whether it be friends and families or you know, other people who came and saw it who you didn't know previously?
I know I felt less nervous about strangers seeing it than people I know see it, because the danger with people you know seeing it is, especially if any of my exes were in the audience or people that knew my exes, they look at it and they're like, is this show about me? Yeah. And Jakob definitely, when he first did it, he helped me with my lines one day, and afterwards he was like, we've had that fight before. I'm like, yes, we have, kind sir. But the reception was amazing. I remember when Reuben and Jack came to see it, they had some great observations in that, like, they felt like they were there with us, like holding space for their friends going through this. So I think a lot of people took very different personal things from it. Like, one girl said that she just got out of a relationship and it helped her come to terms and it helped her have closure with the relationship that she just got out of.
Amazing.
And I was like, you are welcome. That'll be $250 for the therapy bill. So everyone, and then like my mother-in-law came to see it and she just said, I cried a lot. I just felt really sad for you. And I was like, I'm really sorry, Anna, that you had to watch me make out with another man for an hour. But yeah, everyone took something different from it. And my favorite question to ask at the end was, hey, whose side were you on?
Yeah.
Because everyone was always on Colette's side, let's be real.
I found this so interesting because it wasn't my like frame going in, but it did remind me of like Marriage Story or Kramer versus Kramer, where it's sculpted in such a way that you're like, you do sway back and forth a bit where your sympathies lie. And by the end, you're like, I love both of them, but they're both so bad at this like communication thing, but I want them to be happy, but not together. Like, this side thing becomes so difficult. But yeah, no, I was on Colette's side. Yeah. But tell you what, some of those reveals, some of the twists were just nicely paced and nicely pitched in terms of like, you know, you could have gone over the top with like, and also they've been doing this the whole time or never told you this, but it just felt like, oh my God, you clearly should have told the other person this. Yeah. But I can understand why you didn't, because that's a really hard conversation to have. Yeah. Yeah. And I particularly enjoyed, it was just the two of you on stage, and sometimes you would reference other characters, of course, or even call them on the phone, but we would just hear silence on the other end. We didn't have voiceover or anything. And so we had to imagine those interactions, and I certainly had like one reading of them, you know, who's cheating on who, but also just the conversations with friends. I felt like I had a reading of them based on my experiences with like my friends, but other people would have read those gaps or silences or absences differently. Yeah. And then that has an effect on the meaning of what is in the text. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, writing it as well with the other people in the story, so like Mel, Patrick, Colette's parents, I don't actually have a fully formed idea of any of those people because those people don't exist in the world of their apartment. So when I was thinking about, like when I was writing the conversations, especially with Mel and with Patrick, it's like I don't actually really care what those two are saying. What I care about is the way that Luca and Colette are reacting to them and how what they're saying is driving these two characters forward. Like they were important characters in the way that I feel like they affected so much of the story. But at the same time, I was like, all I'm interested in is what Luca and Colette are going to do because of these two people, or like Luca's ex as well. Like I have no formed, Luca's ex didn't even have a name to me. Like I think we named her Chelsea just so we had a name, but I was like, I don't care about her name.
Your script, did the other halves of those conversations have dialogue or even a summary? Or
It was literally just written as a monologue, and then I would just put like pause breaks to like show that this was a phone conversation. But I also just put in the stage directions, that's a phone conversation. So actors can be smart enough to know, I'm better put pauses in because it's a phone conversation, not just a monologue.
Yeah, you would have been really confused when getting the script. You would be like, oh, do I stop here?
Yep.
Now, I really appreciate the fact that, there wasn't dialogue on the other side, and the fact that there wasn't like, a voiceover, something like that. I think from the perspective that you're trying to set up, once again, I only experienced it through reading the script, but I think that having voiceover through something like an audio system, speaker setup, whatever you have in the venue, that can often like break me out of my experience when I'm seeing a show, just because it is a couple of steps. You're already stretching reality when seeing a stage production, but that's like an extra step that really kind of pulls me. I'm like, why am I not hearing it from the phone if you have the person on speaker? I think I just enjoy diegetic experiences, whether it be in like TV shows or movies, but also like stage production. It shows an extra attention to detail and not just like, we'll just have it through the speakers because it's easier.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think also I know the intention of the way I wrote it, but also the way the director interpreted it was to walk that line between naturalism and non-naturalism. And I think if we tried to put the other end of the conversation on like speakers or through the phone, I think that takes away from what we were trying to achieve, because we also didn't hold the phones to our ears at all. We said them as though we were talking to the person and held the phone in our hand. So while the taking a phone call was a very naturalistic action, we're doing it in a non-natural way by just having the phone on our side and actually saying it to the audience like it was one of the asides. So I think the entire show is realism, but like done in a non-natural way, which was interesting for me, because I'm usually just like, no, naturalism, realism. What's this non-naturalism bullcrap? I don't like it. So it was it was jarring for me to have to perform, but it was I think it fits the show, because it's not a naturalistic show, because we are at the end of the day breaking the fourth wall and talking to the audience. So yeah.
How much was there of the breaking the fourth wall in the final production? Because there was a little bit peppered throughout the script. Also, I feel like when I read scripts, I kind of just skip over stage direction stuff. So
you and me
is this
both.
the first time that they're talking to the What was the sort of ratio, I guess?
Well, there was definitely more than probably when you read the script. There was more added in, because when I was talking to my editor and the director, I sort of explained the intention behind the asides, which was that's their self-awareness coming out. And so when they talk to each other, they're not self-aware. The only time they are self-aware is when they're talking to their invisible audience or like looking at the camera, like in The Office. So Sauce, who edits my scripts for me, mentioned then that we probably need to have more of that and more casual moments where they just look to the audience and say a really small line that's an observation of what's going on in the scene or their true feelings about it. So there's more, but they fade away, I think, like when you're at about the halfway mark, because that's them becoming less self-aware of the situation. So there's more, but there's also a definite stop to it.
Yeah, interesting. Okay.
And it actually just started off when I was first writing. I was like, oh, this is a funny, quirky little thing. And then it actually transformed into a really big pillar of what makes the show the show. I just started doing it because I was like, oh, this feels fun. Chuck this in there. Nothing that I write ever starts off that serious, and then it just develops over time. I just kind of start things and I'm like, yeah, this could be fun.
I feel like so much of art is just that.
Yeah, 100%.
And then by the end, someone asks you like, what was the meaning behind this thing that really affected me? And you're like, oh, we actually just called that bit of the show like reverse chicken walking.
Yeah.
There's nothing actually to it. Sorry.
Yeah.
But I'm glad
I'm glad you took something from it. No, 100%. Every time we did a lot of scene study in the process, and I got asked a lot, what does this line mean? And I would have to stop and be like, I'm going to be real with you. I just thought he would sound hot saying that. So I wrote that in there.
Are you talking about the Twilight bit?
No, man. No, that was pure. I'm doing a bit. I actually, by the end of it, I hated that bit.
You did.
I hated delivering it. I hated doing it. I hated like being climbed on. It was not a fun time for me.
Wait, just for the listeners, can you explain what the Twilight bit is?
Okay, so Lucas says, he's talking about using drugs in the past, and he says, I don't need that anymore. I have you. And Colette says, okay, Edward. And Lucas says, I'm so ashamed I get that reference. She says, oh, no, it's your favourite book. And then he does like an Edward, you're like a drug to me, Bella. And the way James did it was he would do the you're like a drug, and then he would just climb on top of me on the couch and try and eat me. while I'm like screeching. And I do
my
have a
God.
line. He says, no, be mine forever, Bella. And then Colette says, oh, forever is way too much commitment for me. But I could never get that very important line out because I've got James like, so I had to like screech it into his ear. So yeah, it was but look, people laughed at it, and I was very worried because I'm like, that's one of the cringiest things I've ever written in my life.
It's really cringy. When I read it in the script, I was like, ugh.
It's less cringy.
Physically recorded.
they pulled
The
that.
copy you have is cringier. Like how I've changed it is a bit less cringy, and then how James interpreted it, I think, was the best way to have it interpreted. So I think it worked, but yeah. Not my favorite part. Definitely will look at revising that if I ever do it again.
Hannah, you can skip this question because it's so fresh. But if you had more time, either more than an hour or more weeks of rehearsal, what would you have liked to shift? So hard, such a hard question.
I think that I would want it to stay in the one act format, but I don't think I want a restricted one act format. I think maybe like if I can get people to sit still for 60 minutes in an hour, like 75 minutes. I don't think I want to be an hour because there's definitely things that I cut out that I think are important, some context things. I don't know if it needs more rehearsal. Look, honestly, I think if it was longer, then it would need more rehearsal. But I think the amount of time we had to rehearse was correct because I think if we'd kept running it, it would have gotten so stale.
Yeah.
Because when James and I were doing it each night, we were finding the relationship was completely different each night.
Yeah.
And so like we'd come off stage and we'd be like, oh, there was that relationship tonight felt very like intimate, and then the next night I'd be like, that relationship felt fun, and the next night I'd be like, I fucking hated you in that one. Like I genuinely was like, by the end I was like, do not come near me ever again. So I think more time would have taken away from the playfulness, but I definitely want it to be longer. I want to add more in. I feel like there just needs to be a bit more context behind why they are the way they are, and a little bit more of them having fun as a couple and making them lovable, and then seeing a real breakdown of their communication. So both. Can I say that I would want both?
Yeah.
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 I think also just on that thing of having a longer run and how that would kind of affect your performance, and maybe we'll touch on this later on in the Finish It section, but when you have a full, big professional production of something that's running for months and months and months, sometimes years, where actors have to go through the same motions of sometimes really intimate scenes, I wonder how they, how much that changes over time. Because I can imagine if you were playing this role for months, you would, definitely lose those special intricacies and just start literally going through the motions with it. And it's like, this is the point in which I say the super fucked up thing, and it's like, oh yeah, this is the bit where I'm meant to be affected in this particular way by that, and less like being in the moment, actually responding to what the your co-star is acting, saying, performing.
Yeah, I think playing Colette for probably longer than like 2 weeks I don't think it would have been as exciting as it was in the 5 days that we did it. Because as you were just saying, I think you said something about a spark. The spark of the relationship was there because we had so little time to do it. So each night we were like, let's make it different. And I don't think we would be as lovable as a couple if we had to do this for like 3 months. I think by the end, we as people would be way too familiar with each other. So at the start, you would be like, okay, well, yeah, I get that it's the start of a relationship. I get that it's supposed to be like this, the sexy new relationship feelings, but those people look like they know each other so well. Because James and I did get to a point where we could like look at each other and know exactly what the other person was thinking. And I think that that's great when you do have to do a two-hander, but you have to keep a little bit of the mystery alive. You've got to keep that. There has to be something that you want from the other person. And I think if you're doing it for too long, it's like, I've gotten everything I want from you and I'm ready to move on. And honestly, I think it was good that we only went for a week because space is great.
So you're glad that you performed with someone you hadn't met prior to the production, or you would have enjoyed doing it with a friend in a different way?
I don't think I would have minded either way. I think that getting someone I didn't know added a different level to it because we had to learn to be comfortable with each other while the characters were learning to be comfortable with each other. And we had to get to know each other and become really close in a really fast amount of time. I think it added to the play. I think doing the intimacy stuff probably would have been easier at the start for me if I knew the person.
Yeah.
So that definitely was a challenge. But honestly, I don't think I minded either way. And I think James was the correct person to play the role. Yeah. And I would love to see how other people play both of those roles. I think that we are just one interpretation, and I think there could be so many different interpretations of it, and I would love to see, someone who isn't me saying these lines or someone who isn't James. But yeah, I think James was the correct person. I know I definitely had friends that I could see them playing the role. I just don't think it would have mattered. I think that the text is the text and everyone can get something from it, I hope. Blowing my own horn here, but I hope.
So, you're not squeezing in another production before getting married, are you?
No, mate.
Okay, just checking.
What is getting married but a huge play?
Exactly. What is a wedding but a production?
All the world to stage.
I'm going to audition for something, but I'm not producing it.
So you're still not stopping?
No, I'm not producing it. I just thought that I would rip the Band-Aid off and actually go to an audition.
Yeah.
But it's different because I'm not responsible for it.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, sure. Would you recommend starting to produce your own stuff again, especially when you've, sort of doing stuff while you're working on getting a wedding together? Is that a thing that you'd recommend to any listeners who are currently, maybe gearing up to getting married? And they're like, well, I have an inkling that I really want to start this massive creative project that could take over my life for a few months.
Jed, I see what you're doing. I see exactly what you're doing. You're trying to trap me. Who knows? Honestly, who knows what the future of Hannah producing things holds? This wasn't a GTC production, so it was just a Hannah Bird production. Who knows what'll happen after marriage? Who knows what 2026 will bring?
Okay. You said that in a very teasing way.
I don't.
And I don't think you said it in a way that's actually shutting down any I don't know, rumors
I
and
can
speculation.
neither confirm nor deny the rumors that are being leveled at me right now.
So there's rumors.
No, there's no rumors.
There's something to deny. Full disclosure, listeners, I have no idea what these two are on about, so I'm with you.
For the listeners, nothing is happening except I am getting married in August. Tickets on sale very soon.
Hannah's new production. I am getting married in August. A pain drunk sequel.
Oh, I hope not.
This is what happens when Colette is happy.
Reuben, if Pain Drunk was... I feel like I know what your answer is going to be, but if there was another run of Pain Drunk, would you recommend for the listeners to go see it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's good. And I mean, it's that, I would be interested to see where it goes with Hannah's hands further away from it. Not that it felt like domineeringly in your perspective or anything, but this thing of I don't know, I'm a dance artist and it's really hard to pass on rep. It changes so much as you pass it on that it's kind of not the same thing. Or you're just teaching it exactly as you heard it from some choreographer in the 60s or whatever. Whereas screenplays and scripts for stage shows have this amazing way of kind of sharing the authorship between the person who wrote it and the people who bring it to life. So I'd be fascinated to see, the multiversal version of Colette.
Yeah, so would I. See what it's like when I'm not involved. I've never had a play that I've written be put on when I don't have some kind of control over it. So I would be very nervous.
Of course.
I'd probably watch it and be like, why are you saying it like that?
Yeah.
That's so wrong.
Yeah.
But no, I'd be very fascinated to see. If anyone wants to put on Pain Drunk, not yet. Let me re-end it.